Does the nature of Anthony Joshua's loss to Daniel Dubois prove that he was just a hype job all along and was never any good to begin with? Because a lot of people are saying that. Well, I want you guys to cast your minds back to when Tyson Fury fought Francis Ngannou. I made several videos about that fight in the aftermath. And in those videos, I expressed my opinion that Tyson Fury didn't take that fight particularly seriously, didn't train that hard, and I gave examples of historic fights where a top quality fighter struggled or was even beaten by somebody who shouldn't have been able to lace his boots. One of them was Muhammad Ali when he lost to Leon Spinks. Now in the comments of those videos, which are still up on my channel, there was a bunch of Tyson Fury critics accusing me of making excuses for Tyson Fury. They were saying that Fury did train properly and that his performance against Ngannou proves that he was overhyped all along. There were people, again, go check the comments on those videos. There were people saying that that was actually the best version of Tyson Fury there's ever been, equal to the version who beat Vladimir Klitschko. That's what they were saying, and I was disagreeing with them. I was of the view that, no, Fury just didn't train properly. He's always been a guy that is either as good as the best of them or as bad as the worst. He's inconsistent. It's a reflection of his up and down personality. So I was actually defending Tyson Fury when people were saying he was a hype job all along, based purely off the Ngannou performance. That's not to say that Fury isn't overhyped to some extent by his diehard fans, because as I've said many times on this channel, most fighters who have a big following are overhyped or overrated by a certain segment of their fan base. Tyson Fury is no different in that regard. But you see, a lot of critics have got agendas, and the ones who don't have agendas tend to have this very bipolar way of looking at boxing. You're either the real deal or you're a complete fraud with nothing in between. Whereas I think that boxing is actually a lot more nuanced than that. I think that there are many shades of gray. So when people say that such and such a fighter has been exposed, what does that really mean exactly? Exposed as what? Mortal? Yeah, every fighter's mortal. But again, this speaks to the dichotomous perspective of a lot of boxing fans where everything is black and white. You're either the real deal or you're absolute rubbish. Also, a lot of fans don't take the old adage that styles make fights into account, but it's the most accurate adage in boxing as far as I'm concerned. Because you look at Anthony Joshua, he destroyed Otto Wallin just a couple fights back, a man who took Tyson Fury the distance and gave him plenty of problems. He also destroyed Ngannou, who gave Tyson Fury plenty of problems. Furthermore, he went the distance with Alexander Usyk twice. Daniel Dubois fought Alexander Usyk as well, and he couldn't manage to go the distance once. Yet and still, Dubois destroyed Anthony Joshua. Boxing is rock, paper, scissors. It's not as straightforward as many fans seem to think it is. It's all about how different styles match up. Anthony Joshua handled Usyk's style better than Daniel Dubois did. And if you cast your minds really far back, Anthony Joshua destroyed Kevin Johnson in what, 2 rounds? Years later, Kevin Johnson took Daniel Dubois the distance. So to answer the question at the start of the video, was Anthony Joshua just a hype job all along? Well, if you're saying was he never any good and never had any talent and was totally manufactured and never took on any tough opposition, then the answer is no. All of that stuff is false. Anthony Joshua in his day was a very good fighter. He just wasn't the best, nor was Deontay Wilder. And unless he can show us different in the Usyk rematch, nor was Tyson Fury. At least not since Usyk has been in the heavyweight division. Maybe you could make an argument for him prior to that, but again, he never fought Anthony Joshua when AJ was a champion, so we'll never know for certain. We can all have opinions. People trash AJ's resume because it's full of fighters in their 30s, with only a couple in their 20s. I'm talking about his championship resume. But so is Tyson Fury's, last I checked. Wilder was in his 30s, Dylan White was in his 30s, Derek Chisora was in his 30s, Klitschko was in his late 30s, early 40s. When did Fury beat a young, big punching, aggressive fighter? He went life and death with Steve Cunningham when he was what, 25, 24? And Cunningham was in his mid-30s? Which young, dangerous fighters did Deontay Wilder beat during his championship run? Ortiz was well into his 30s. Stavern was in his 30s. Ariola was in his 30s. One or two of them might have been in their 20s, but they were never any good. Artur Spilka, for example, might have been in his 20s when he fought Wilder, but he's no great shakes. So when you analyze it objectively, AJ's resume isn't really any worse than Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder's resume. You could argue that, well, Fury beat Wilder, and that's better than any win AJ's got. But you could counter that by saying, well, AJ beat Joseph Parker, who beat Deontay Wilder. AJ also beat Andy Ruiz. Is he on a similar level to Wilder? You could argue that he is. As it stands right now, the man who's head and shoulders above everybody is Alexander Usyk. He smacked up Joshua a couple of times, dealt with Dubois, a young guy in his 20s, dealt with Fury, and if he deals with Fury again, there you go, he's the man. I mean, he's already the man, but he'll be the man twice. Everybody else in the heavyweight division is playing second, third, fourth, fiddle, etc. to Alexander Usyk. And that's not a bad thing. This is one of the greatest fighters of all time. It's nothing to be embarrassed about that you're number 2, 3, or 4 behind Usyk. Was it embarrassing for Ken Norton not to be the number 1 in the 1970s? People still look at Norton with a lot of respect. So no, I don't go for this whole thing of writing off a fighter's whole career as a hype job because he got stopped a couple times and got beat by one of the greatest fighters in history in Alexander Usyk. I don't see that as like a disgraceful career. AJ's had a very good career, beat some good fighters. He beat a great fighter in Klitschko, albeit in his last ever fight. It's not the same as beating a prime Klitschko, obviously. But you look at Mike Tyson's resume. Who did Mike Tyson ever beat? A bunch of guys with drug problems. An ancient Larry Holmes who was coming off a 2.5-year layoff and barely had a month to train. Who did Mike Tyson beat? Didn't beat Lennox Lewis, didn't beat Holyfield, never fought Riddick Bowe, never even fought George Foreman. What's his best win? What, Tony Tucker? Razor Ruddock? These are not historically great fighters. Most of the guys Mike Tyson beat in his prime were older guys. Bone Crusher Smith, Trevor Berbick, Pinklon Thomas, Tony Tubbs, Carl Williams. These are all Larry Holmes leftovers. The younger guys he beat were Tyrell Biggs, who had a serious drug problem at the time when Tyson fought him, and for many years after that as well. Tucker, I've already mentioned. Frank Bruno. Now, I'm not saying Anthony Joshua was ever as good as Mike Tyson. Judging by the way he struggled with Daniel Dubois' style, I'd have to figure that Mike Tyson would smoke him in a couple of rounds. I've seen enough of Anthony Joshua throughout his career to come to that conclusion now. And I say that because fighters do surprise you. I mean, Daniel Dubois has surprised us all, including the people who picked him to beat AJ. Because how many of them would have expected him to go on the run that he's been on when he quit on one knee against Joe Joyce and when he did it again against Usyk last year? How many people would have predicted that he would come back as strong as he has? Boxing is full of surprises. So sometimes it's better to wait towards the end of a fighter's career before you start saying, okay, I think he could have beaten this guy from back in the days, this other champion, or he would have lost to him, etc. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Those are my thoughts on whether or not AJ's a hype job. To me, it's not so black and white as hype job or real deal. There's shades of grey, many of them, and AJ sits somewhere within those shades of grey. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll catch you in the next video. I'm out.